Good afternoon. It's Sunday, the 22nd of February. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. Ongoing efforts to finalize a deal with Iran to curb its nuclear activities by the end of the month continue today in Geneva. Some Arab countries have expressed pessimism over the outcome, saying that they fear the U.S.-led agreement will allow Tehran to become a nuclear threshold state, adding that no deal is better than a bad deal. IBA's Marko Dukevich has been following the events and has filed this report.
Hours before the start of another round of two-day talks with Iran in Geneva, aimed at curbing Tehran's nuclear capability, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry warned U.S. President Barack Obama will not agree to another extension if the talks fail to secure a deal by the March 31st deadline.
There are still significant gaps. There's still a distance to travel. And with respect to the end date that you asked about, President Obama has no inclination whatsoever to extend these talks beyond the period that has been set out, with a feeling that it is imperative to be able to come to a fundamental political outline and agreement within the time span that we have left.
Over the weekend, Arab states expressed concern that the US-led nuclear deal will allow Iran to become a nuclear threshold state. The Wall Street Journal reported that officials in Sunni states such as Egypt, Qatar, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates were quoted saying no deal is better than a bad one. While the country stopped short of siding with Israel, who opposes the deal, unnamed Arab officials reportedly held discussions with the US over the possibility of Washington placing their countries under a nuclear umbrella, a guarantee to take military or even nuclear action to protect an allied state under certain circumstances. The talks in Geneva are expected to touch on a number of issues, including concern over the number of centrifuges Iran will be able to operate to enrich uranium, as well as Tehran's plans to construct another heavy water reactor that could produce substantial amounts of plutonium, a potential pathway to nuclear arms. Just days ago, the International Atomic Energy Agency released a confidential report saying Iran has still not addressed specific issues that raise suspicions it may have researched an atomic bomb, thus complicating efforts by the six world powers to clinch a nuclear deal. The report also noted that Iran continues to refuse to cooperate in two areas of long-running IAEA investigation. Meanwhile, Kerry also took advantage of the opportunity to address concern over the future of the Palestinian Authority if Israel continues to withhold the transfer of tax revenues. Jerusalem last month decided to halt the funds in response to the Palestinians' decision to join the International Criminal Court. Washington and Jerusalem have been at loggerheads ever since Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu agreed to a request from the Republicans to address Congress on the Iranian nuclear threat, 2 weeks before Israel's general elections. Netanyahu's insistence to deliver the speech has faced harsh opposition from the entire American political spectrum, with some threatening to boycott the speech and others busying themselves with so-called previous engagements.
If the Palestinian Authority ceases or were to cease security cooperation or even decide to disband as a result of their economic predicament, and that could happen in the near future if they don't receive additional revenues, then we would be faced with yet another crisis that could also greatly impact the security of both Palestinians and Israelis.
Marko Dukevich, IBA News.
Just 23 days ahead of the election, Police Commissioner Yochanan Danino is recommending the opening of a criminal investigation into the handling of public funds by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Meanwhile, the premier today focused on the Iranian nuclear dispute, assuring the cabinet that he will go to Washington as scheduled to address the U.S. Congress about the issue. Here with all the latest is IBA's diplomatic correspondent Eli Wogelenter.
Prime Minister Netanyahu warned today against Iran's attempt to increase its foothold on Israel's borders. He said that in addition to Iran's direct guidance of Hezbollah in the north and Hamas in the south, Iran is also trying to develop a third front on the Golan Heights via the thousands of Hezbollah fighters who are in southern Syria and over whom Iran holds direct command. And he said it is astonishing that even after the recent IAEA report determined that Iran is continuing to hide the military components of its nuclear program, the nuclear talks are proceeding. Not only are they continuing, there is an increased effort to reach a nuclear agreement in the coming days and weeks. Amid reports that the Obama administration may downgrade its participation in next week's AIPAC conference, Netanyahu reiterated that he will go ahead with his controversial speech to Congress to explain why this agreement is dangerous for Israel, the region, and the entire world. Minister of Energy and Water, Silvan Shalom, defended Netanyahu going to speak to Congress.
I believe that Israel should do everything it can in order to prevent such kind of an agreement that will endanger the safety and the security of the State of Israel. We are not trying to confront anyone, but what we are trying to do is to say in a very clear and loud voice that that agreement with Iran might impose some threat on Israel's existence, and that's why we should do everything we can in order to prevent it. We are not against any kind of agreement, but we are against that agreement that we believe will put Israel in a very risky situation, and it might undermine its existence. That's why the Prime Minister is trying to do everything he can in order to prevent it.
On another front, Attorney General Yehuda Weinstein is contemplating whether to order a police investigation into allegations of criminal abuse of funds at the Prime Minister's residence. Police are reportedly gearing up to take evidence in the case, including possibly from Netanyahu and his wife, Sarah. Weinstein is to convene a meeting with senior officials from the state prosecutor's office to consider the allegations, as detailed in a report last week by State Controller Yosef Shapira, and in testimony from the disgruntled former caretaker of the Prime Minister's residence, Meni Naftali. Police Commissioner Yochanan Danino said today that there is enough evidence for a criminal investigation against the Netanyahus following additional testimony from Naftali. Danino said, on the face of it, we should be looking into the issue. However, he added, we must allow the Attorney General to weigh all the material as well as what he received from the State Controller. David Shimron, the Netanyahu family lawyer, said that Naftali was not a credible witness and that the State Controller's minor report did not contain allegations of criminal behavior. Shimron said the entire scandal was the work of a very large campaign by very large forces designed to bring down the Prime Minister. So far, polls are showing the so-called Balagate affair has had little impact on voters' intentions, but the opening of a criminal investigation into Netanyahu's spending could prove more politically significant, coming just 3 weeks before the general election on March 17th. And if that wasn't enough of a headache for the Netanyahus, State Controller Shapira will be releasing a report on the housing crisis next week, despite pressure from Likud to delay the report until after the election. In the report, which is expected to be issued next Tuesday, Shapiro will reportedly point his finger directly in the direction of Netanyahu, claiming that it was the policies of his government that caused real estate prices to jump by tens of percentages since 2009, when Netanyahu returned to the Prime Minister's office. Also coming in for criticism will be former Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Zionist Union leader Isaac Herzog said the report would have a serious impact on the election, while Yesh Atid leader Yair Lapid accused Netanyahu of preventing a solution to the housing crisis. A number of Likud MKs delivered harsh critiques against Shapira after he announced his intention to publish the report before the election. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. Well, many of the nation's young people are getting a first-hand look at democracy in action during the election campaign. At one Jerusalem high school, students today listened to real candidates speak about issues ahead of their own mock election next week. IBA's Ario Sullivan reports.
Selfies with MK Shelley Yachimowicz. She came to Hebrew University's high school in the capital to push her Zionist camp's agenda. And students had tough questions for her. Why is your campaign bashing the Prime Minister instead of explaining your platform? Will you make deals with political parties holding opposing platforms? She spoke to them as if they were real voters and urged them to, well, vote for her party.
Well, I believe that every citizen, even if he can vote, he will be able to vote eventually. And I think that it's very important to be exposed to politics and all the leading parties. This is why I believe that this meeting with Shelley Yachimowicz and Yuli Edelstein is very important.
I'm not 18 yet, but still I'm very excited. Shelley Yachimowicz is one of my favorite politicians, so it's a great honor to be a part of this.
A few Likud supporters greeted Speaker of the Knesset Yuli Edelstein when he arrived. He urged students to remain engaged and vote for Likud when they're old enough. In your high school, are people excited about the election?
Well, yeah, there's actually a project that this Tuesday we'll be voting, sort of voting in school, and people are very excited. There's a lot of like discussions and arguments and all. I think people are really interested in it.
These are our future citizens, and they must learn to be citizens. They must get to know the different opinions in the most difficult issues. We can bring into school any issue as long as it's represented by different views, not one view but different views. And we want them also to learn about the dynamics of democracy.
There were no heated arguments, but lots of interest. After all, they're Israeli kids, and no one is apathetic when it comes to politics in this country. Aryeh O'Sullivan for IBA News.
The Defense Ministry today announced that it will purchase 14 additional next-generation F-35 fighter jets for approximately $3 billion. The deal with Lockheed Martin adds to the fleet of 19 U.S.-made aircraft bought back in 2010 and includes an option for 17 more in the future. The security establishment is planning that the stealth jet, also known as the Joint Strike Fighter, will ultimately replace its fleet of F-16 warplanes to maintain aerial dominance in the region. The latest shipment is due to be delivered late next year. The F-35 is the Pentagon's most expensive weapons program, with an estimated cost of nearly $400 billion, aiming to replace a wide range of existing aircraft for the U.S. and several partner countries. In other news, more than 1,000 people formed a ring of peace outside Oslo's main synagogue last night at the initiative of a group of young Muslims. The event in the Norwegian capital follows a series of attacks against Jews in Europe, including the January terrorism in Paris and again last week in Denmark. Norway's chief rabbi Michael Melchior sang the traditional Jewish end of the Sabbath song outside the synagogue as participants in the large crowd held hands. One of the 8 independent organizers of the event, Hajra Arshad, said that the gathering shows that Islam is about love and unity, while participants expressed their reasons for coming.
We stand up for the free religion, and by myself I'm a theological student, and I want to be here to mark my solidarity for the Jewish, the Muslim, and for everyone who can practice their religion.
I'm here to promote interfaith between the Jewish people and Muslim people, and to show everybody that we get along, we live in peace, and this is what being human is all about, is getting along and being at peace with one another.
Turkey launched an overnight military operation into neighboring Syria to evacuate about 40 soldiers guarding an Ottoman tomb near Aleppo, considered to be Turkish sovereign territory by international agreement. Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu today announced that nearly 600 troops in 100 tanks and armored personnel carriers were involved in the operation. After crossing the border near the town of Kobani, one deployment of troops moved the medieval crypt back to Turkey. A second took control of an area near Turkey and ceremonially planted Turkey's crescent and star flag at the site, where authorities plan to relocate the remains of Suleiman Shah, the grandfather of Osman I, who founded the Ottoman Empire. Davutoglu said that one soldier was killed in an accident during the mission. He added that the former burial complex was destroyed in apparent efforts to prevent it from being used by Islamic State and other fighters in Syria's civil war. Here at home, police have expanded the search for Shai Yaakov Noam, who went missing in the Engedi region on Friday. Fears for his life have increased after all-day efforts to locate him yesterday by rescue team workers, friends, relatives, an Israeli Air Force helicopter, and a force from the IDF Oket's K-9 unit proved to be fruitless. The strong current of the Arugot stream, due to heavy rain and snow, has made the search even more difficult. The missing Rehovot resident was last seen at the Ein-Gedi Youth Hostel on Friday about 5:30 in the morning. Taking a sharp turn to arts and entertainment, and tonight's the night that Hollywood film buffs wait for all year around. The 87th Annual Academy Awards will be held at the Dolby Theater beginning at about 3 a.m. local time. Crews are readying the red carpet on the world's largest and most watched runway ahead of the arrival of the industry's leading actors and filmmakers. California's forecast is calling for rain, although the weather is not expected to dampen either the stars' spirits nor their style. Joining me now here in the studio to discuss the Oscars is Jerusalem Post film critic Hannah Brown. Hi, Hannah. Thanks for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, let's start with Best Picture. The nominees are American Sniper, Birdman, Boyhood, The Grand Budapest Hotel, The Imitation Game, Selma, The Theory of Everything, and Whiplash. Put on your psychic film hat. Who has the best chance of winning?
Well, people are saying that it's really between Birdman and Boyhood, that those are the two. I mean, now they can nominate up to 10, and so almost all the good movies get nominated, you know, so that's so that you have to think what is really in the running. Some people are saying possibly American Sniper because that's been the most successful of the nominees.
Seems to be a crowd favorite.
Yeah, no, it's a very, it's a big crowd-pleasing movie. I mean, but now the trend is more to go for the slightly lower-profile movies to give them a boost because the industry's been going down in the box office receipts every year. So I think that now they're using it instead to validate some big success like Titanic, to give it a movie like Boyhood has been critically successful, but it only has made $25 million. It might sound like a lot, but it's not really for a Hollywood movie.
Interesting. Well, we have an Israeli film, IBA, which is up for an Oscar for Best Live Action Short Film. Let's take a look at a clip.
Great.
It's Mr. Overby, right?
Yes, it's Overby. You stressed the Y.
Overby. I'm a Aya, by the way. Aya. So you are in the Wittgenstein competition?
I'm a jury member.
Mr. Overby, are you ready for a confession?
You want me to confess?
No, not you. Me. Can you play the piano on my hand?
So, Hannah, how would you rate Israel's chances of coming home a winner?
Well, it's a tough category to predict because basically none of us has paid much attention to it before, to be honest. But it's, look, Aya is a wonderful movie, and I wish really with all my heart that it does win, and I think it's beautiful. And it's one of the categories where everyone who votes has to have seen all 5 nominees, so that gives it a better chance than it would have normally. But you know, on the other hand, there's a movie that, The Phone Call, it has Sally Hawkins in it, the British actress, and Jim Broadbent. He's an Oscar winner. There's a movie from Northern Ireland, Boogaloo and Graham, with 2 cute kids and little pets. And, you know, who knows what they're going to go for. It's a movie about Tibetan refugees. It's very hard to know.
Fierce competition.
Yeah, definitely.
The movie that I really want to see and having a chance is this joint Danish-Polish film, Ida, which is nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, which is about an orphaned young woman in Poland who's about to become a nun, I'm sure you know this, who sets off on a search of the fate of her family after she unexpectedly finds out that she's Jewish. Let's take a quick look at that film.
Więc jesteś żydowską zakonnicą. Kim? Jesteś Żydówką. Nie powiedziały ci przez tyle lat. Nazywasz się Ida Lebenstein. Jesteś córką Chaima Lebensteina i Róży Herz. Urodziłaś się w Piaskach, koło Łomży.
This looks like a particularly poignant film. What do you think about it? Does it have a message?
Well, I don't know if it has a specific message, but it's an experience that a lot of people here, if you know older people who've been through the Holocaust, somebody knows someone who was hidden in a convent as a child, and those people have amazing stories. I think it's a really beautiful movie, and it's brilliant. And also, I hope that this wins. I think that this will win. I think it's got a good chance. But there's some other strong movies. Leviathan, which is a movie from Russia, and let's thank the director because he came to the Haifa Film Festival in October. Not a very popular time for foreigners to come and visit here.
That's right.
So it's also, I also wish that film well. It's also a very, very strong film.
You have any speculation about Best Actress?
Julianne Moore, everyone's saying, for Still Alice, because she plays a person who gets early onset Alzheimer's. So she's actually really good looking, but she, goes through this whole, terrible disease, and she's been nominated 4 times before and never won.
Did she win the Golden Globe for that?
She did. She won every award for that.
Yeah, so she's probably got pretty strong chances. How about Best Actor?
Best Actor is the most wide open of the acting categories, but I think it's going to be Eddie Redmayne for The Theory of Everything. He plays Stephen Hawking, who's a real person who has a disability and an inspiring story and speaks with a strange voice, which is like an accent. Those are the ingredients of Oscar's success.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, Hannah Brown from the Jerusalem Post, have an easy night. I know you're going to be up all night.
I go to sleep early and then wake up and see the red carpet. So I'm crazy, but I'm doing it for everyone. So
you are. You're doing it for us.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for coming in and sharing everything with us.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Hannah. See you soon. Turning now to sports, and a few hours from now, the much-anticipated State Cup basketball final will tip off between Hapoel Jerusalem and Maccabi Tel Aviv. For the first time, the final will be at the new 12,000-seat Jerusalem Arena, which is sold out for the game. Hapoel enters the contest on a high note after crushing Hapoel Eilat 97-65 in last week's semifinal. Jerusalem has also won its past 3 league matches and is unbeaten in all competitions since January 18th. Hapoel is in its first State Cup final since 2008 when it won its second consecutive title. Maccabi has captured the past 5 State Cup titles, but comes into tonight's contest without the services of the team's injured center Sofo and hasn't really been playing its best basketball lately. 2 weeks ago, Maccabi had to overcome a lethargic performance and a 21-point deficit to defeat Maccabi Haifa in league play, and then lost to a mediocre Alba Berlin in the EuroLeague. Last week, the club didn't look impressive in the Cup semifinals when it was fortunate to overcome a 5-point deficit in the final minute against Maccabi Haifa to force overtime before winning 90-87. The final can be seen live tonight at 9 o'clock on Sport 5. Now taking a look at local finance, and with no currency trading on Sundays, the shekel remains the same, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange started off the trading week in the plus column. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. Despite today's beautiful sunny conditions, the IBA weather team tells us that we can expect mostly cloudy skies tomorrow, accompanied by another slight rise in temperatures and strong easterly winds in the northern mountains. Here's the forecast to home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. I'll be back tomorrow to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. We now leave you with images of the usually dry Anava River in Modein after the weekend storm created a rare winter wonder waterland, filmed by former IBA soundman Eli Gal. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a great evening and shalom from Jerusalem.